Welcome to the Cotton Club Radio. I'm your host, Cotton Club. I'm just going to get straight into it. This episode is going to be called, Is Being Oncode the New Norm? I want to talk about this, man, because this is an important conversation. Does anybody who know me well know that code of conduct is a principle that I live by? I want to start off by asking the question, what is being on code? Because it's one of those conversations everybody talk about, especially in the Black community. See, being on code is when a group of people follow a single program or instruction to build an agenda that is cohesive and beneficial for the entire group. You heard me, family? Now ask yourself, are you on code? Because I need to know. Check this out. I don't be around people who ain't on code. You understand what I'm saying? Because Black Americans as a people, we're in dire times right now, where our government is doing everything they can do to keep us disunited. We know this because ever since the 60s and the Civil Rights Movement, we've been on that list for benign neglect. Meaning that the United States government has purposely been ignoring Black American needs while prioritizing other groups. And we can see this within the last 50 years. Outside of individual progress, we haven't really seen any major programs put in place to benefit the specific needs of our group. The only program I can really think about is affirmative action, but studies have already proved that affirmative action did more opening doors and opportunities for white women and immigrants than it actually did for Black Americans. When we start to analyze a lot of these programs that were supposed to be for us that came through the Civil Rights Movement, you start to realize that a lot of those programs were co-opted to benefit minority groups and not Black Americans. And it seems like no one is talking about that. So what I want to do is I want to take a deep dive and really look at those Civil Rights Acts. Because what it seems like with those Civil Rights Acts is that instead of opening more opportunities across the board, they opened opportunities for tokenism to where companies didn't feel like they had to hire Black people. They felt like they had to hire that one Negro. And that to me was a way that they could go around the whole discrimination piece of those Civil Rights Acts, because those Civil Rights Acts ultimately, outlaw discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. So technically, you weren't supposed to discriminate against a person, but if I had one Negro, then I could say my company isn't racist. Or if I could get a foreign Negro, I could say, well, we hire Black people. You see the deception in that? You had the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You had the 1968 Fair Housing Act, which prohibited discrimination concerning in sales and rental and finances and housing-based operations. You couldn't discriminate against people's race, religion, national origin, and sex. All of these things sound great on paper, family, but can we keep it funky? What did these things actually do? Because we can look now, in hindsight, we can look at what was said on paper versus what was actually done in reality. After these acts happened, you started to see Black businesses nearly disappear and were replaced with immigrant businesses. Let's keep it funky. Black American home ownership plummeted while new income immigrant family home ownership began to rise. Black American bank loans begin to plummet while immigrant loans begin to rise. Summer jobs like McDonald's, pizza shops, mowing lawns, and other little summer jobs that young people used to do begin to be replaced with illegal immigrants. After school programs begin to shut down. Even free lunch begin to wither by the wayside. My point is, when Black folks were on code, we got those Civil Rights Acts passed. Now, what happened after 60s? Even the 70s, because it seemed like the 70s we were still on code to a certain degree. It seemed like after the 70s, there was nothing specific done for us, and we were still making noise, but nothing was really done. We know that the government injected mass incarceration into our neighborhood, along with a deepened police state. Drugs, welfare began to increase, and so did the declaration of benign neglect that ultimately sent our community backwards, I'd say multiple generations. But watch this. And simultaneously with that benign neglect came a massive influx of immigrants. And we're talking about Black American solidarity and being on code, and how us being on code garnered the government weaponizing immigration against us to dilute our being on code and cohesiveness. That's what I'm talking about, family. I'm starting to see the connection between when we get on code and then all of a sudden mass amounts of immigration happen. Not only is that not a coincidence, that's actual habitual behavior. for the United States. You think about the late 18th century when there was a large population of freedmen, black Americans. What did they do? The moment we started to grow in numbers, they brought in a lot of European immigrants. They brought in more Irish, they brought in the Italians. The early 70s and 80s, they brought in more Hispanics. They brought in more Puerto Ricans, more Dominicans. And then you started to see more Caribbeans and Africans start coming in those 80s, 90s. So whenever black people are starting to grow in numbers or get on code at a high rate, we start to see a heavy influx of immigration. And that's by design, family. We gotta start looking at our relationships with immigration a little differently. Because black folk have been here so long, we've had interactions, either good or bad, relationships with all immigrants. You know, you can look at in the early 19th century, our relationship with the Irish, it wasn't a great relationship. They were very anti-black, and even though many of them were going through their own discrimination, it seemed like instead of siding with us against a common oppressor, they began to be more anti-black so they could haze themselves into whiteness and get white approval for proximity to whiteness. You can look at our relationship with the Italians in the early days. Many of them were very anti-black. They were another group that had to haze themselves into whiteness. We look at our relationships with many Hispanic groups, our early relationship with Puerto Ricans. So yeah, relationships got a little better, but in the earlier years, Puerto Ricans were very hostile and racist toward black Americans. So we gotta start really picking apart the time frame of when the government is using and weaponizing immigration against us. I want to start looking at the rise of black American stereotypes, because I'm going to keep it funky, man. A lot of these stereotypes started to increase during the 80s and the 90s. And around this time, there was a major influx of immigration. And this time around, it was a lot of black immigrants coming into. And we started to see an increase of a lot of black stereotypes. The whole black Americans are lazy myth. The whole black Americans are inherited to criminality, right? We started to see the rise of anti-black sentiments that was harvested by white supremacists, but regurgitated by different minorities. And this is when we really started to see the rise of the whole stay away from those black Americans. That mainly was being pushed heavily by black immigrants and Hispanics. Stay away from those Akatas. Stay away from those Yankees. Stay away from those Negroes. Well, Cotton Club, well, why are you bringing this up? Let old wounds heal. Well, I'm bringing this up because I want to show you that actually this off-code behavior that seemed to seep its way into our culture and we didn't know where it came from, this whole delineation, all was implemented first by black immigrants and Hispanics. They were the first ones to say, I'm not black, I'm Jamaican, or I'm not black, I'm Dominican. And we were confused because we thought everyone with melanin was black, just like us. We didn't come from a culture that discriminated. Our parents didn't say, stay away from that Jamaican. That was a new concept. Delineation was a new concept. That concept was introduced to us by immigrants. We have to keep it funky. So I think it's rather diabolical that now that black Americans are delineating, you're hearing a lot of those same immigrants say that we're being divisive. And let me say this, because I got a lot of people that I love and care about who are from Caribbean backgrounds, and they don't represent the people that I'm talking about. But even they know the people that I'm talking about. So we got to keep it real. I've lived through both experiences. I've lived around Caribbean people who I love and respect me and love black American culture. Some of the most respectful, caring people that I've ever met, to be honest with you. But then I've been around some Caribbean people, when you come around their space, they treat you like an outsider. You see them bickering, you see them side-eyeing you, and you ain't do nothing. All you did was come to congregate, and they know right off the bat you black American, and they just keeping their distance and being off-putting. I don't mess with those kind of people. Those are the kind of people who have always practiced delineation against us. Moving on, I want to talk about this. Is getting on code the new norm, family? Because while I'm seeing a rise of black Americans getting on code, I'm also seeing a rise of off-code behavior. We got to talk about that too, because yeah, I'm talking about being on code, but let's talk about what being off code looks like. If you one of them people who look like me and you online talking crazy about black Americans, that's off-code behavior. If you at your job and you talking to a white person and you talking down on a black American and thinking that that's going to get you accepted by white people, that's off-code behavior. If you're a melanated person and you're around people talking crazy about black Americans and you don't check them, that's off-code behavior. This type of off-code behavior makes it ever so important. Black Americans are getting back on code. It's a beautiful thing, family. It's beautiful to see us back on code again. You know, I want to thank the black media for helping re-enter black American essence and helping to reshape, re-solidify, and resurface black American pride. But I want to get back to this, is being on code the new normal? I want to talk about how this formulated. Just give us a timeline and an understanding of where I think this newfound on code behavior started to reemerge. I think it started about 6 years ago with the boosting of the reparations conversation into mainstream media. Before this time, reparations was a conversation that a few of us even talked about. It wasn't like a conversation that was a hot topic in our household. Reparations was always a two-way conversation in our families where both sides agreed that reparations were due, but some of us either were optimistic about it or some of us were pessimistic about it. But I can't ever remember hearing a black American say, we don't deserve reparations. That way of thinking was more propagated by white people, some Hispanics, and other immigrants, because they believed that reparations for black Americans would not benefit the country, which in my opinion is not true at all. Everyone would benefit from black Americans, descendant of freemen, receiving reparations. People who say the country wouldn't benefit, I think many of them are just racist. I'm gonna just keep it real. And they don't want to see black folks coming up. Here's why everyone would benefit if black folks got reparations. Number one, black folks don't just spend money within our group, and we don't only hire people within our group. That's other people. Let's keep it 125% funky, fam. Other groups come here and they shut black Americans out of business, and they only hire their own. Either it's fast food restaurants, car dealerships, construction industries, you name it. Black Americans are the only group that will hire based on merit and not interpersonal relations. So we'll hire somebody who's qualified for the job. We don't care if he's black, Hispanic, or Caribbean. If dude can handle the job load, we gonna pay him, and we gonna make sure, because we like stuff right. We don't like half-assing. So we ain't gonna pay our cousin to do something if he can't do it right. You understand? We gonna hire Miguel because Miguel might be qualified and Miguel know what the hell he doing. You understand what I'm saying? Also, you know, while getting to the root of why black Americans are making being on code the new normal, is this beautiful delineation movement where black Americans are starting to self-identify and reclaim and understand our unique lineage in this country that our ancestors built. To me, that's a big deal, and that's a beautiful thing, because it's bringing back that pride in our lineage, man. That to me it makes me overwhelmed with joy. Another reason why being on code is the new normal is because black Americans are becoming more politically intelligent and not allowing either political party to get away with not prioritizing our specific issues. Because for way too long, we've moved toward one political party and remained loyal to that one voting base, whether they did anything for us or not. And that was to our detriment, family. So I'm proud of us for at least holding our political parties accountable. I understand that most of us are Democrat. I understand that many of us are moving toward the Republican. I'm also proud that many of us are voting more independent so that we can look at both of these political parties and efforts to scrutinize them so that we can get them to prioritize us. We have to start looking at our relationships with these political parties, family, and stop thinking about things from a legacy perspective and start looking at things from a more transactional perspective, where specific tangibles are in exchange for votes. And that's how it should be. A lot of us on the grassroots are using this approach. It's been working because it's been our blind loyalty to these political parties that unfortunately has aided in our political demise. And if we don't change this immediately, it will be our political suicide. So it's important that we stay on code to protect our self-interest as a group. We must recenter self-determination and focus on rebuilding our communities and economic development. Keep the momentum, family. Let's keep it going. And invite real love and understanding to these conversations, because some people will bring their defeated mentalities to these conversations. And it's not because they don't want to see change, but it's because they're not ready for change. It's nothing new in any era of black progress. Remember, many slaves didn't believe in self-determination and freedom. They just weren't ready to see that. This kind of reality in their lifetime was just unfeasible. We could even look at the civil rights movement. With Dr. King and Malcolm. Even they were met with resistance, and let's not forget, Dr. King's first assassination attempt was by a melanated woman who stabbed him in the chest about 3 inches away from his heart, nearly deleted him because she didn't understand what all the fuss about some civil rights was all about. See, my point is, it only takes a minority of on-code black folk in our community to get something done. We can't wait on everybody else to get on program. So we have to keep this in context. The fact that we have always lived under a government that has made it its number one priority to keep black folks disunified and off code, family. That's what that whole COINTELPRO thing was about. Disrupt, destabilize, delegitimize, and ultimately destroy any sign of black unity. So we have to continue to make being on code the new normal, family, and focus on economic development, investment in maintaining our families' mental health, spiritual advocacy, and focusing wholeheartedly on restorative justice. That's all I got, family. It's the Cotton Club Radio. You know what it is. Holla at me.